She slapped the bride, kissed him on the lips and said, "You are only mine," before taking him away for a passionate romance. Hi, my wonderful story family. Welcome back to Mr. Peter Stories. Today, I want to speak to you, not just as a storyteller, but from my heart, as someone who truly cherishes every single one of you. Lately, I've been feeling a little down. I found myself wondering, are my stories still touching your hearts the way they used to? When I saw fewer comments on my last video, I won't lie, it made me question if I'm still bringing you the joy, comfort, and inspiration you deserve. Every story I tell is a piece of my soul. I pour my love, passion, and truth into every line, hoping to make you feel something real, something beautiful. Your words, your feedback, your support, they're not just nice to see. They keep me going. They remind me that this journey is not mine alone. It's ours. So if my stories have ever made you smile, cry, or feel deeply, please let me know. Write yes in the comments if you'd like me to keep going. And if there's anything I can do better for you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. You are more than an audience. You are my story family, and without you, this journey has no meaning. Thank you for being here. Thank you for staying. You truly mean the world to me. Now, let's take a deep breath and begin today's story together. The lecture hall buzzed with anticipation. Distinguished guest speaker Thomas Wesley, 32, self-made millionaire and notoriously private, was scheduled to deliver a talk on entrepreneurship. The university had been promoting the event for weeks, but Lisa Paris had barely noticed the flyers. Finals were approaching, and her mother's voice echoed in her mind. Excellence first, everything else second. Lisa slipped into the lecture hall 5 minutes before it started, finding an empty seat in the third row. She pulled out her notebook, not a laptop like most students used, but an actual leather-bound journal her mother had gifted her before the illness took her. Write your dreams in ink, Lisa. It makes them harder to erase. The professor introduced the guest speaker with enthusiasm that bordered on reverence. Lisa looked up as Thomas Wesley strode confidently to the podium. The world around her seemed to still. He was tall, taller than she'd expected, with broad shoulders draped in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit. His skin was a warm olive tone, his features strong and defined. But it was his eyes that captured her. Deep, intelligent eyes that crinkled slightly at the corners when he smiled at the professor's introduction. Lisa found herself sitting straighter, uncapping her pen with fingers that suddenly felt clumsy. "Thank you for that generous introduction," he began, his voice deep and resonant. "But I prefer Tom." Thomas Wesley sounds like someone who'd never known what it's like to sleep on a friend's couch while trying to code an app that nobody believed. Laughter rippled through the audience. Lisa didn't laugh, but a smile tugged at her lips. She appreciated the honesty, the hint of vulnerability beneath the success. Tom's presentation was unlike any guest lecture she'd attended. No formulaic entrepreneurship cliches or rags-to-riches platitudes. Instead, he spoke about failure as intimately as success, about the nights of doubt, about ethics in an industry where cutting corners meant faster growth. "True success," he said toward the end, "isn't measured by your bank account. It's measured by whether you can look in the mirror each morning without flinching from your own reflection." Lisa found herself nodding. It was something her mother might have said. When he opened the floor for questions, her hand rose before she'd consciously decided to participate. Tom pointed to her. Yes, the young woman in the blue blouse. Lisa stood, suddenly aware of hundreds of eyes on her. "You talked about ethical entrepreneurship, but in a system designed to reward the quickest growth and highest returns. Isn't that just idealism? How do you reconcile those principles with the reality of securing investments and competing with companies that don't share those constraints?" A hush fell over the lecture hall. The professor looked nervous, but Tom Westley's eyes lit up with interest. He leaned slightly forward on the podium. "That," he said, "is exactly the right question." He paused, studying her face with an intensity that made her heartbeat quicken. "May I ask your name?" "Lisa Paris." "Lisa," he repeated, as if testing how. It felt on his tongue. "The system is designed as you described it, but systems can be changed, or at least navigated differently. I've walked away from investors whose values didn't align with mine. I've been outperformed by competitors who cut corners. But at the end of the day, I've built something that matters with people who matter in a way that matters." He spoke directly to her, as if the hundreds of other students had disappeared. "Idealism isn't naivete if you're willing to work harder for it. It's a choice, sometimes the harder choice, but I believe it's always the right one." Lisa nodded slightly, oddly moved. She sat down, feeling the intensity of his gaze linger on her, even as he called on another student. After the lecture, students surrounded Tom, asking for business cards and selfies. Lisa packed her notebook, preparing to leave for her shift at the campus coffee shop. "Miss Paris," the deep voice came from behind her. She turned to find Tom Westley standing there, the crowd of admirers watching curiously from a distance. "I wanted to thank you for your question," he said. "It was refreshing to hear someone challenge the premise rather than ask for a roadmap to quick success." Up close, he was even more striking. A faint scar traced his left jawline, and his eyes were a complex hazel that shifted between green and brown as he spoke. "It was a good lecture," Lisa replied, "different from what I expected." "What did you expect?" "Another billionaire telling struggling students how they just need to work harder and take more risks, as if structural disadvantages aren't real." A smile spread across his face, genuine, reaching his eyes. "And what did you get instead?" Lisa considered him carefully. "Someone who acknowledges that success isn't just about individual effort. Someone who seems to understand privilege." "I try to." He held out his hand. "It's a pleasure to meet you properly, Lisa Paris." She took his hand. His palm was warm, his grip firm but gentle. Something electric passed between them, something that made her breath catch. Likewise, Tom Westley. Their hands lingered together a moment too long. When they finally separated, Lisa felt strangely bereft. "Are you a business major?" he asked. "Education, with a minor in social policy. I want to reform educational systems in underserved communities." His eyes softened. "That's remarkable. Not as immediately impactful as launching a tech company. I'd argue it's more impactful. Technology changes how we do things. Education changes who we can become." Lisa felt a flush creep up her neck. No one had ever validated her career choice so eloquently. "I should go," she said reluctantly. "I have a work shift starting soon." "On campus. The Grove coffee shop. Tuition doesn't pay itself, unfortunately." Tom nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Perhaps I'll stop by sometime. I have a few more meetings here this week." "They make decent espresso," Lisa said with a small smile. "Nothing special. I think we both know that's not why I'd come by." The directness of his statement, the open admiration in his eyes, sent a thrill through her that was both exhilarating and alarming. She thought of her promise to her mother, the vow made beside a hospital bed. No distractions, no relationships, no man until that degree is in your hand. "I should really go," she said, more firmly this time. Tom stepped back respectfully. "Of course. It was a pleasure meeting you, Lisa Paris." "You too." As she walked away, she could feel his eyes following her. Her heart pounded with a rhythm that felt dangerous, forbidden. She'd promised her mother, education first, love later. She'd watched her brilliant mother give up a promising academic career for a man who abandoned them both when Lisa was only 3. On her deathbed, her mother had made Lisa promise not to repeat her mistake. Focus, Lisa. 4 semesters left. Then you can feel whatever this is. But even as she tried to dismiss it, she knew something had shifted in her world. The universe had tilted on its axis the moment Thomas Wesley's eyes had met hers. Tom watched her leave, something stirring deep in his chest that he hadn't felt before. In a life filled with negotiations, acquisitions, and strategic relationships, this was different. This felt like recognition, as if he'd been waiting to meet her without knowing he was waiting. "Mr. Wesley," the professor approached anxiously. "The dean is waiting in his office for our meeting." "Yes," Tom said, still looking. At the door, Lisa had disappeared through. "I'm coming!" But as he followed the professor out, his mind was filled with the image of intelligent dark eyes that had seen past his success to who he really was. Lisa Paris. Even her name felt like something he'd been meant to say all his life. He made a silent promise to himself. He would see her again, soon, and next time he wouldn't let her walk away so easily. Neither of them realized that fate had just set them on a course of love, heartbreak, and promises that would test them both to their limits. The universe had just clicked 2 puzzle pieces into place, but the picture they would form together was still hidden in the mists of the future. Chapter 2. Growing Closer. 3 days after the lecture, Lisa was wiping down the counter at the Grove coffee shop when the bell above the door chimed. She looked up, and her heart skipped a beat. Tom Wesley stood in the entrance, casual in dark jeans and a simple navy sweater that somehow looked more expensive than most people's formal wear. His eyes found hers immediately, as if he'd scanned the entire cafe in a single glance. "You came," Lisa said before she could stop herself. A smile spread across his face. "I said I would. People say a lot of things. I'm not people." He approached the counter, his presence commanding the space without effort. "I'm just a man in need of decent espresso." Lisa felt a smile tugging at her lips. "Just decent. You're the one who set the expectations." His eyes sparkled with amusement. "What do you recommend?" "Depends on what you like. Strong and straightforward. Or something with more complexity?" "Definitely complexity." His gaze held hers. Always. She felt heat rise to her cheeks. This was dangerous territory. "1 cortado coming up. It's small, but perfectly balanced. Strong enough to respect the coffee, but with a velvety texture that softens the edges." Sounds perfect." As Lisa prepared his drink, she could feel him watching her, not with the impatience of most customers, but with genuine interest in her process. Her hands moved with practiced precision despite the flutter in her stomach. "You're good at that," he observed. 3 years of practice. It's just muscle memory now." "Don't diminish skill," Tom said. "Mastery isn't just about time invested. It's about presence and attention. You're fully engaged with what you're doing. That's rare." Lisa glanced up, surprised by the insight. Most people saw baristas as interchangeable service workers, not craftspeople. She slid the cortado across the counter. $4 even. Tom handed her a 20. "Keep the change." "That's too much. Consider it appreciation for the craftsmanship." Before she could protest further, he took his drink to a small table by the window and pulled out his laptop. For the next 2 hours, Lisa served other customers, cleaned equipment, and restocked supplies. But her awareness never left the man by the window. Occasionally, she'd look up to find him watching her, a small smile playing on his lips before he returned to his work. As her shift neared its end, a group of rowdy business students entered, loudly discussing investment strategies and eyeing the female customers with poorly disguised interest. "Hey, isn't that Thomas Wesley?" one of them said, gesturing toward Tom's table. "Holy shit, it is," another replied. "We should go talk to him. My dad's an angel investor. Maybe he could hook me up." Lisa bit her lip, watching as the group approached Tom's table. To her surprise, Tom greeted them politely but briefly, not encouraging extended conversation. Within minutes they retreated, looking disappointed. As Lisa hung up her apron at the end of her shift, Tom closed his laptop and approached the counter. "You're finished for the day?" he asked. "Yes, finally." "Would you have dinner with me?" The directness of his question caught her off guard. Her promise to her mother flashed in her mind, but then again, dinner wasn't a relationship. It was just dinner. Just as friends, she clarified, both for him and for herself. Something flickered in his eyes, disappointment perhaps, but he nodded. "Of course, I'd appreciate the conversation." "Then yes, but I need to change first." She gestured to her coffee-stained uniform. "I'll wait." 30 minutes later, they sat in a small, intimate restaurant just off campus. Lisa had changed into a simple blue dress that brought out the warm undertones in her skin. She debated whether to change at all. Putting on a dress felt like acknowledging this was more than a friendly meal, but her coffee-scented uniform had made the decision for her. "So," Tom said after they'd ordered, "tell me about your vision for educational reform." Most men Lisa had encountered wanted to talk about themselves, but Tom asked questions, genuine, thoughtful questions, and listened to her answers with complete attention. She found herself sharing dreams she rarely verbalized, creating schools that served as community centers, implementing curriculum that honored diverse cultural perspectives, developing teacher training programs that emphasized emotional intelligence alongside academic knowledge. "You don't think small, do you?" Tom said, admiration warming his voice. "What's the point of dreaming if you limit yourself to what seems immediately achievable?" I couldn't agree more. His fingers traced the rim of his water glass. "That's exactly how I approached building my company. Everyone said I was crazy to prioritize ethical sourcing and employee well-being over faster growth. And now? Now they call it visionary corporate leadership." He laughed softly. "Amazing how success reframes impossible idealism into revolutionary thinking." As they shared dessert, a dark chocolate tart that Lisa initially declined, but Tom insisted they split, she found herself asking about his background. "You mentioned coding on a friend's couch. Is that really how you started?" A shadow passed over his features. "That was the middle, not the beginning." He set down his fork. "The beginning was less picturesque. You don't have to share if you'd rather not." "No, it's okay." He took a breath. "I was orphaned at 12. Car accident, no close relatives willing to take me in. I spent my teenage years in foster care. Some good homes, some not so good." Lisa's heart constricted. "I'm so sorry. I was angry for a long time, felt abandoned by everyone, including the universe." His eyes met hers. "But looking back, those years shaped me. I learned to be self-sufficient, to read people's true intentions, to value genuine connection when I found it." The vulnerability in his admission touched something deep within her. Her own loss, her mother's death during her freshman year, was still a raw wound. "I lost my mother 2 years ago," she found herself saying. "Cancer. She was all I had." Tom's hand moved across the table, covering hers. His touch was warm, comforting. "Then we both understand what it means to build a life on your own terms." "Yes," Lisa whispered, fighting unexpected tears. "We do." They walked back to campus under a star-filled sky, their conversation flowing from childhood memories to favorite books to philosophical debates about justice and purpose. Lisa couldn't remember the last time she'd felt so intellectually stimulated, so seen. Outside her dormitory, Tom stopped. The night air was cool, filled with the scent of jasmine from nearby bushes. Street lamps cast a golden glow over his features, softening the angles of his face. "Thank you for tonight," he said softly. "I should be thanking you. You paid. Your company was worth far more than dinner." Lisa felt the pull between them, like gravity drawing 2 stars together. He was looking at her with an intensity that made her breath catch, standing just close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from his body. No love, no man, no relationship, until you graduate. "I should go in," she said reluctantly. "Lisa." Her name on his lips sounded like a prayer. "May I see you again?" The right answer, the answer that honored her promise, was no. But looking into his eyes, she couldn't say it. "As friends," she reiterated, her voice not entirely convincing, even to her own ears. "As whatever you need us to be," Tom replied, his voice deep and sincere. "I just want to know you better." "Then yes." A smile transformed his face, crinkling the corners of his eyes. "I'll text you tomorrow. Do I have your number?" Lisa hesitated, then took his phone and entered her contact information. As she handed it back, their fingers brushed, sending a current of awareness through her body. "Good night, Tom." "Good night, Lisa." She forced herself to turn away, to walk into her building without looking back. But once inside, she couldn't resist glancing out the window. Tom still stood there, looking up at the dormitory, his expression a mixture of hope and something deeper, more intense. That night, lying in bed, Lisa took out her mother's photograph from the bedside drawer. "I'm just being friendly, Mom," she whispered to the smiling image. "It's not breaking my promise, it's just he understands me, in a way no one else has." But deep down, she knew she was already treading dangerous waters, the way her heart raced when he looked at her, the way her skin tingled where he touched her hand. This was not just friendship. This was the beginning of something that could shatter her promise into 1,000 pieces. As sleep finally claimed her, her dreams were filled with hazel eyes and a voice that called to her soul. And somewhere in the space between waking and dreaming, a thought formed with perfect clarity. Sometimes, the most important promises are the ones we make to ourselves. Tom, in his penthouse apartment across town, stood at the floor-to-ceiling, windows overlooking the city. He couldn't stop thinking about her, her brilliant mind, her compassionate heart, the look in her eyes when she spoke about changing the world. He'd met countless beautiful, accomplished women, but none had affected him like Lisa Paris. "Just friends," he murmured, smiling slightly at the transparent attempt at boundaries. He'd respected her terms tonight, but he'd seen the way she looked at him, felt the current between them. What was developing between them was anything but ordinary friendship. He didn't understand her hesitation, but he would be patient. Something told him Lisa Paris was worth waiting for. She was like no one he'd ever met, a rare soul in a world of surface connections. As he turned from the window, Tom made a silent vow. He would earn her trust, break down her barriers, discover what held her back, and then he would win her heart, completely and forever. Chapter 3. Undeniable feelings. Autumn painted the campus in fiery hues as leaves drifted lazily to the ground. 3 months had passed since Tom and Lisa's first dinner, and their friendship had evolved into something neither could honestly define. They still used the word, a thin shield against the truth growing between them, but their actions told a different story. Tom attended every one of Lisa's presentations for her education courses, sitting in the back of the room with quiet pride as she articulated her vision. Lisa found herself saving articles that reminded her of their conversations, texting him at odd hours when an idea struck her. They had their routines, Sunday brunches at a quiet cafe, weeknight study sessions where Tom worked on business proposals, while Lisa wrote papers, movie nights where they debated storylines and character motivations until dawn. Friends, they insisted, just friends. Tonight was the annual Autumn Gala, a university fundraiser that brought together students, faculty, and prominent donors. Lisa hadn't planned on attending, the tickets were expensive, and formal events held little appeal for her. But Tom had asked her to accompany him with such genuine hope in his eyes that she couldn't refuse. As friends, she'd clarified automatically. A hint of frustration had crossed his face before he'd masked it with a smile. As always, Lisa. Now, standing in front of her mirror, Lisa barely recognized herself. The dress, a gift from Tom that she'd initially tried to refuse, was midnight blue silk that draped elegantly over her curves. It was tasteful, yet undeniably sensual, with a neckline that showcased her collarbones and a slit that revealed glimpses of her legs when she moved. Her roommate Maya whistled from the doorway. "A girl, you look like royalty." "It's too much." Lisa smoothed her hands over the luxurious fabric. "I told him not to spend money on me." "And yet you're wearing it." Maya raised an eyebrow. "How long are you two going to pretend this is just friendship?" Lisa avoided her eyes. "It's complicated. It's really not. You're in love with him. He's in love with you. Everyone can see it except apparently you two. I made a promise, Maya." "To a ghost." Maya's voice softened. "Lisa, your mom wouldn't want—" "Don't!" Lisa's tone hardened. "Please." A knock at their door interrupted the familiar argument. Maya sighed and went to answer it, returning moments later with wide eyes. "Your friend is here," she said with heavy irony. "And honey, friendship has never looked like that." Tom stood in their small living room, a vision in a perfectly tailored black tuxedo. He'd always been handsome, but tonight he looked almost otherworldly, powerful, elegant, and absolutely captivating. His eyes widened when he saw her, a flush of color rising on his cheekbones. "Lisa!" Her name sounded like reverence on his lips. "You're breathtaking." The naked admiration in his gaze sent heat coursing through her. "You clean up pretty well yourself." "This old thing?" He smiled, breaking the tension. "I just keep it around for impressing beautiful women. Does that happen often?" The question slipped out before she could stop it, tinged with something that sounded dangerously like jealousy. Tom's eyes softened. "Not anymore." Maya cleared her throat dramatically. "I'll just leave you two friends to your friendly evening." She disappeared into her bedroom, closing the door with pointed emphasis. In the hallway outside their apartment, Tom offered Lisa his arm. She took it, feeling the solid strength beneath the fine wool of his jacket. His nearness was intoxicating, the scent of his cologne wrapping around her senses. "You really do look incredible," he said quietly as they walked. "But more importantly, how did your policy paper go? You were worried about the statistical analysis section." The fact that he remembered that he cared about her academic concerns alongside everything else made her heart swell. This was what made Tom different. He saw all of her, valued all of her. "I finished it. My professor thinks it might be publishable with some revisions." Pride shone in his eyes. "Of course it is. You're brilliant, Lisa." At the gala, heads turned. As they entered, Tom Wesley might be a familiar face at university functions, but the stunning woman on his arm was new. Lisa felt the curious stares, heard the whispered questions. She straightened her spine, drawing confidence from Tom's steady presence beside her. Throughout the evening, Tom kept her close, his hand resting lightly at the small of her back as he introduced her to university trustees, business associates, and academic leaders. Not as his date, never that, but with words that conveyed his admiration nonetheless. "This is Lisa Paris," he would say. "She's developing a revolutionary approach to community-based education. You should hear her ideas on experiential learning, integration." And each time, he would step back, letting her shine in her own right. Lisa found herself warming to the conversations, articulating her visions to people with the power to help implement them. By the third such introduction, she realized what Tom was doing, building connections that could further her career, opening doors without making her feel indebted. Later, as a string quartet played and couples moved to the dance floor, Tom turned to her with questioning eyes. "Would dancing cross your friendship boundary?" he asked softly. The responsible answer was yes. Dancing with Tom, being held in his arms, would be dangerous territory. But the music was beautiful. The night was magical, and Lisa was tired of fighting the current between them. One dance, she conceded. His smile was worth the risk. He led her onto the floor, one hand taking hers, the other settling respectfully at her waist. Even with that modest point of contact, Lisa felt electricity course through her body. They moved together as if they'd been dancing for years, finding a natural rhythm that had her heart racing. "People are watching us," she murmured, noticing the speculative glances. "Let them." His voice was low, meant only for her. "I only see you." The honesty in his eyes undid her. For a brief, wild moment, Lisa imagined breaking her promise, telling Tom everything, falling into this connection between them, letting herself be loved by this extraordinary man. The song ended too soon. Tom led her from the floor, but instead of returning to the gala, he guided her through French doors onto a terrace bathed in moonlight. The autumn air was crisp, carrying the scent of fallen leaves and distant wood smoke. "You looked like you needed a moment," he explained, shrugging out of his jacket and draping it over her shoulders. The fabric was warm from his body, enveloping her in his scent. "Thank you." She pulled it closer, suddenly shy under his intense gaze. "For everything tonight, the introductions, the dress, all of it." Tom leaned against the stone balustrade. "You don't need to thank me, Lisa. Watching you impress those stuffed shirts with your brilliance was my pleasure. Dean Harmon's face when you corrected his outdated statistics was priceless." Lisa laughed, remembering the man's startled expression. "I shouldn't have done that." "You absolutely should have. He respects you now. Called you formidable after you walked away." They fell silent, looking out at the campus spread below them, lights twinkling against the darkness. "Lisa," Tom's voice had changed, grown serious. "There's something I need to tell you." Her heart stuttered. "What is it?" "I've been offered a position in London, 6 months overseeing the European expansion of my company." The world seemed to tilt beneath her feet. "London? When would you leave?" 3 weeks from now." His eyes searched hers. "I haven't given them my answer yet." "Why not? It sounds like an amazing opportunity." She struggled to keep her voice steady, to ignore the hollow feeling spreading through her chest. "Because of you," he said simply. The honesty rocked her. "Me? But we're just—" "Don't say friends," Tom interrupted, a rare edge to his voice. "Not tonight. Not when you're wearing my jacket and looking at me like that." He stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. "Tell me to take the job, Lisa. Tell me there's nothing between us worth staying for, and I'll go." Lisa's throat tightened. This was her chance, the perfect opportunity to put distance between them, to recommit to her promise, without having to explain why. 6 months apart would cool whatever was building between them. It was the sensible choice. But looking up into his eyes, golden in the moonlight, she couldn't form the words. "I can't tell you what to do," she whispered instead. "That's not an answer." His hand rose to her face, fingers gently tracing her cheekbone. "What do you want, Lisa? Just once. Tell me what you want, not what you think you should want." The touch of his fingers against her skin broke something loose inside her. "I want you to stay," she admitted, the truth finally escaping. "I don't want you to go to London." A group of laughing students burst onto the terrace, shattering the intimate moment. Tom dropped his hand from her face, stepping back with visible reluctance. "We should go back inside," Lisa said quickly, using the interruption to retreat from dangerous emotional territory. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of polite conversations and stolen glances. The admission between them hung in the air, unaddressed but impossible to ignore. When Tom finally drove her home, the silence in the car was heavy with unspoken words. Outside her apartment building, he walked her to the door as always. In the shadowy entrance, Lisa slipped off his jacket, returning it with hands that weren't quite steady. "Thank you for tonight," she said formally. "Lisa." His voice was tight with emotion. "We need to talk about what happened on the terrace." "Nothing happened. The lie tasted bitter. You asked me to stay. I shouldn't have." She looked away from the hurt in his eyes. "The London position is a great opportunity. You should take it." Tom's jaw tightened. "Look at me and say that." She couldn't. Instead, she fumbled for her keys, desperate to escape before she broke completely. "Good night, Tom." His hand caught her wrist, gentle but firm. "Why are you fighting this? What are you afraid of?" The raw emotion in his question undid her. Lisa turned back, meeting his gaze with tears threatening to spill from her eyes. "I'm afraid of breaking a promise that means everything to me," she whispered. "And I'm afraid that's exactly what I'll do if we keep pretending this is just friendship." Before he could respond, before he could ask the questions she couldn't answer, she pressed a swift kiss to his cheek and slipped inside, closing the door between them. Alone in the darkened entryway, Lisa finally let the tears fall. She leaned against the door, wondering if Tom was still on the other side, if he could somehow sense her breaking apart. "I love you," she whispered to the empty room, words she couldn't say to his face. "And that's why I have to let you go." Chapter 4. The First Proposal. A Garden of Light. Tom didn't go to London. 2 days after the gala, he called the board and declined the position. His executives were baffled. Thomas Westley had never been one to pass on expansion opportunities, especially ones he'd helped architect. But Tom couldn't explain his decision in business terms, couldn't quantify the pull that kept him anchored to this city, to her. For 3 weeks after the gala, Lisa avoided him. She didn't answer his calls, responded to his texts with polite deflection, and changed her coffee shop shifts. Tom gave her space, understanding her retreat even if it wounded him. But patience had its limits, and his ran out on a crisp November evening as golden leaves carpeted the campus. He was waiting outside her advanced educational policy seminar, leaning against a maple tree with his hands in the pockets of his cashmere. "Oh, goat!" Lisa stopped short when she saw him, her heart performing a painful somersault. "You're avoiding me," he said simply. She clutched her books tighter against her chest. "I've been busy." Lisa. Just her name, but filled with such emotion that she couldn't look away. "I didn't go to London." "I know." She'd seen the press release, read it with a mixture of relief and guilt. "You shouldn't have made that decision." "Because of what I said. I made that decision because of what you didn't say." He stepped closer, his eyes intense. "Because every time I think about leaving, I can't imagine not seeing you, not talking to you, not being near you." Students streamed around them, but neither noticed. They were in their own world, a bubble of tension and unspoken feeling. "Tom, I can't have dinner with me tonight," he interrupted. "Please, just dinner and conversation, like before." She should refuse. Distance was safer, smarter. But looking into his eyes, Lisa found herself nodding. "Okay." Dinner. Relief washed over his features. "I'll pick you up at 7. But when Tom arrived that evening, it wasn't to take her to a restaurant. Instead, he led her to his car with a mysterious smile. "Where are we going?" Lisa asked as they drove away from campus. "You'll see." 20 minutes later, they pulled up to his company headquarters, a sleek glass building downtown. Lisa raised an eyebrow as he ushered her inside and into the private elevator. "This doesn't look like dinner." "Patience," he murmured, his hand warm against the small of her back. The elevator opened directly onto the rooftop, and Lisa's breath caught in her throat. Tom had transformed the space into a magical garden. Hundreds of twinkling fairy lights were strung overhead, creating a canopy of stars. Lanterns cast a warm golden glow over elegantly arranged flowers. Her favorite lilies formed a heart-shaped pattern in the center of the roof. A small table with fine china and crystal glasses stood waiting, champagne chilling in an ice bucket beside it. Tom. His name was barely audible, choked with emotion. What is this? He took her hands in his warm hazel eyes reflecting the twinkling lights above, the gold and green flecks in his irises shimmering with emotion. This is me, telling you I'm done pretending. Pretending what? But she knew, of course she knew, that I just want to be your friend, that I'm not completely, irrevocably in love with you. The words hung in the night air between them. Lisa felt dizzy, her heart pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. You've been keeping something from me, Tom continued, his thumbs tracing gentle circles on the backs of her hands. Some reason, some promise that's holding you back. I don't know what it is, but I know how I feel. I know how you feel too, even if you won't say it. Tom, please, let me finish. His voice was gentle but firm. I've never felt this way about anyone. Never met anyone who challenges me, inspires me, moves me the way you do. When you walk into a room, the whole world comes into sharper focus. When you laugh, I feel it here. He pressed their joined hands to his chest, where she could feel his heart racing beneath her palm. I love you, Lisa Paris, not as a friend, not casually, with everything I am. Tears blurred her vision. I can't do this. Yes, you can. He released one of her hands to brush a tear from her cheek. Whatever is holding you back, we can face it together. Just trust me. Trust us. He guided her to the center of the rooftop, to the heart made of lilies. The scent of the flowers enveloped them, sweet and intoxicating. Tom looked at her with such tenderness that it physically hurt, and then, to her shock, he lowered himself to one knee. Tom, what are you doing? Panic edged her voice. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. When he opened it, a ring caught the light of 1,000 tiny stars, a brilliant diamond surrounded by smaller sapphires that matched the midnight blue of her gala dress. Lisa Paris, you make my world make sense. His voice was steady despite the vulnerability in his eyes. Will you marry me? Time seemed to stop. Lisa stood frozen, torn between competing truths, the love consuming her heart and the promise binding her soul. Tom knelt before her, offering her everything she'd ever wanted, while her mother's voice echoed in her mind. No love, no man, no relationship until you graduate. The promise had been sacred, made to a dying woman who had sacrificed everything for her daughter's future. Lisa had sworn on her mother's hospital bed, holding her frail hand as machines beeped a countdown. To goodbye, breaking that vow felt like betrayal of the deepest kind, but refusing Tom felt like betraying her own heart. I can't, she whispered, tears flowing freely now. I'm so sorry, Tom. I can't. His face registered shock, then pain so raw it made her flinch, but he didn't get angry, didn't demand explanations. Instead, he slowly closed the ring box and rose to his feet, dignity intact despite the devastation in his eyes. Is it because you don't love me? He asked quietly. The question nearly broke her. It would be easier to lie, to end this cleanly, but she couldn't do that to him. No, she admitted, her voice breaking. That's not why. Hope flickered in his eyes. Then why? I just can't. Please understand. How can I understand when you won't? Explain. Frustration edged his tone for the first time. Lisa, talk to me. Whatever it is, we can work through it. But she was already backing away, her vision blurred by tears. "I need to go. I'm sorry, Tom. I'm so sorry." "Lisa, wait." But she couldn't stay, couldn't bear to see the hurt in his eyes or feel the magnetic pull between them for one more second. She fled across the rooftop to the elevator, jabbing the button repeatedly as if it could make the doors close faster. Tom didn't chase her. He stood amid the lanterns and lilies, watching her go with his heart exposed and bleeding. As the elevator doors began to close, he spoke just loud enough for her to hear. "I'll wait." The simple declaration followed her down 20 floors, wrapping around her heart like a promise of its own. Outside, Lisa gulped the cold night air, trying to steady herself. She couldn't go back to her apartment. Maya would take one look at her and know everything, would resume her gentle campaign to convince Lisa that her mother wouldn't have wanted this suffering. Instead, she wandered aimlessly, eventually finding herself in a small park several blocks away. She collapsed onto a bench, sobs racking her body as the full weight of what she'd done, what she'd refused, crashed over her. The expression on Tom's face when she'd said no would haunt her forever. "Mom," she whispered brokenly to the night sky, "why did you make me promise? Why is it so important that I be alone until graduation? Don't you want me to be happy?" Only the distant sounds of traffic answered her. Lisa lost track of time as she sat there, tears eventually subsiding into a hollow emptiness. A text from Maya finally roused her, a concerned check-in that reminded her she couldn't stay in the park all night. When she returned to their apartment, Maya took one look at her swollen eyes and tear-stained face and pulled her into a fierce hug. "What happened?" she asked, leading Lisa to the couch. Lisa couldn't keep it in anymore. The whole story poured out. The rooftop garden, Tom's declaration of love, the proposal, her refusal. "I almost broke my promise," she sobbed. "I almost gave in." Maya held her, rocking gently. "Maybe your mum wouldn't want you to suffer like this. Maybe the promise was about focus, not denial." It doesn't matter what she would want now. What matters is what I promised her then. Lisa wiped her eyes. Her last wish was for me to graduate before giving my heart to anyone. I won't dishonor that, even for Tom. Maya sighed, but didn't argue further. She made tea, provided tissues, and eventually helped Lisa to bed, where exhaustion quickly pulled her into fitful sleep. Across town, Tom sat alone in his penthouse, the untouched ring box open on the table before him. A glass of whiskey dangled. From his fingers, amber liquid catching the city lights through the floor-to-ceiling windows. His best friend James had come over after receiving Tom's cryptic text. She said no. "Maybe she just doesn't feel the same way," James suggested, nursing his own drink. Tom shook his head. "You didn't see her eyes. She loves me. There's something else holding her back. Then what are you going to do?" Tom stared at the ring, selected with such care, such hope, and felt resolve hardening within him. Wait. Fight. Whatever it takes. And if she never changes her mind? The question hung in the air. Tom considered it with the ruthless honesty that had made him successful. "Then I'll have spent my life loving the right woman," he said finally, "even if she never chooses me back." James looked at his friend with concern. He'd never seen Tom like this, the calculated businessman replaced by a man consumed by love. "Just be careful," he advised. "Don't lose yourself in this." But as James left, Tom knew it was already too late for such warnings. He was already lost, had been since the moment Lisa Paris had challenged him in that lecture hall. Whatever secret she was keeping, whatever was holding her back, he would respect her boundaries, but he wouldn't give up on them. Not when everything in him recognized her as the other half of his soul. He would give her space. And then he would try again, differently, because some loves were worth fighting for, worth waiting for. and Lisa Paris was worth everything. Chapter 5. The distance and pain winter descended on the campus with bitter winds and early darkness that mirrored the cold emptiness in Lisa's heart. 6 months had passed since Tom's rooftop proposal. 6 months of careful distance maintained by mutual unspoken agreement. 6 months of phantom pain like an amputated limb. Each morning Lisa woke reaching for something that wasn't there. Each night she fell asleep with words unsaid burning her throat. The campus that had once felt alive with possibility now seemed hollow, every corner haunted by memories of Tom's smile, his voice, the warmth of his hand against hers. For Tom, the penthouse that had once been his sanctuary became a prison of memories. He worked punishing hours, unable to face the emptiness of rooms where he'd imagined building a life with Lisa. His executives noticed the change. His legendary patience shortened, his creative vision focused with an intensity that bordered on obsession. He drove himself relentlessly, as if physical exhaustion might numb the constant ache of her absence. They weren't completely out of each other's lives. They still moved in some of the same circles, still exchanged occasional texts about academic articles or business innovations that reminded one of the other. But the easy intimacy they'd once shared had been replaced by polite formality, a protective barrier against the feelings neither could fully extinguish. Each carefully worded message was a pale shadow of the conversations they longed to have. Lisa threw herself into her studies with renewed determination. She was now in her 3rd year, the halfway point of her promise almost reached. Sometimes, in her weaker moments, she calculated exactly how many days remained until graduation. 652 at last count. The number felt simultaneously endless and terrifyingly finite. On a snowy December afternoon, Lisa sat in the library, surrounded by research papers for her thesis proposal. The words blurred before her tired eyes, her concentration fractured by the memory of Tom's face when she'd seen him at last week's faculty reception. He'd been speaking with the university president, looking elegantly remote in a charcoal suit. When he'd spotted her across the room, something had flashed in his eyes, longing, quickly masked by cordial acknowledgement, before he'd returned to his conversation. They hadn't spoken that night. Lisa had left early, claiming a paper deadline. Earth to Lisa. Maya's voice snapped her back to the present. Her roommate set down a cappuccino in front of her and slid into the opposite chair. "You've been staring at the same page for 10 minutes, Maya observed. "And don't say you're concentrating. I know you're thinking about Tom Face," Lisa sighed, accepting the coffee with gratitude. "I saw him in the paper today. His company launched that educational software initiative. The initiative had been born from one of their late-night conversations. Lisa's passionate ideas about accessible learning technology transformed by Tom into actual products now being implemented in underfunded schools nationwide. She hadn't been credited, hadn't asked to be, but seeing the program described in the business section had filled her with bittersweet pride. "Have you considered," Maya said carefully, "that you're interpreting your promise too literally, Maya?" "Hear me out." Maya leaned forward, her expression earnest. "You promised your mom no relationships until graduation, but does that mean you can't be honest with Tom about why? Does that mean you have to suffer in silence? Maybe if you told him the truth, explained the promise, he'd understand. He'd wait." Lisa stared into her coffee. The thought had occurred to her, of course, many times, but something always held her back. "It wouldn't be fair to him," she said, finally. "Asking someone to put their life on hold for almost 2 years, that's selfish. But not telling him, making him think you just don't care enough, that's fair." The uncomfortable truth hung between them. Before Lisa could respond, her phone vibrated with a text message. Her heart jumped when she saw Tom's name. "Need your expertise. New educational program we're developing. Professional consultation only. Coffee tomorrow?" Is that him? Maya asked, noting Lisa's expression. Lisa nodded, showing her the message. Professional consultation, Maya read, eyebrows raised. Sure, that's definitely all he wants. Stop it. But Lisa couldn't help the flutter of anticipation as she typed her reply. Grove Coffee Shop, 2 p.m. She hesitated, then added, looking forward to it. The response came almost immediately. Me too. Just two simple words, but they carried a weight that made Lisa's chest tight. She set her phone down, trying to ignore Maya's knowing look. Just professional, Lisa insisted, returning to her research papers with renewed focus. Nothing more. But that night, she spent an hour choosing what to wear for their coffee meeting, rejecting outfit after outfit before settling on a simple emerald sweater that Tom had once said brought out flecks of gold in her eyes. Just professional, she repeated to herself. Nothing more. The Grove Coffee Shop was busy when Tom arrived the next day, exactly on time as always. His eyes found her immediately, as if drawn by some invisible force. Lisa watched him approach, noting the subtle changes 6 months had wrought. He looked leaner, the angles of his face more pronounced. The easy smile he'd once worn around her had been replaced by something more guarded. He was still the most beautiful man she'd ever seen. Lisa, he greeted her, not moving to hug her as he once would have. Thank you for meeting me, of course. She gestured to the coffee already waiting for him, a cortado, his favorite. I ordered for you. I hope that's okay. Something softened in his expression. You remembered. Some things are hard to forget. A charged silence fell between them. Tom broke it first, pulling out a tablet and launching into a description of the educational program his company was developing, an immersive learning platform designed for neurodivergent students. He spoke professionally, as if she were indeed just a consultant, but his eyes told a different story. Lisa matched his tone, offering insights and suggestions, pointing out potential improvements. It was like watching themselves perform a choreographed dance, the steps formal, but the underlying emotion anything but. This is important work, Tom, she said when he'd finished his presentation. It could change lives. That's the goal. He put the tablet away, finally meeting her eyes directly. How have you been, Lisa? Really? The simple question, asked with such genuine care, nearly undid her. She could lie, maintain the facade of calm competence she'd perfected over the past months. Or she could offer a small piece of truth. Busy, she said. Focused. But sometimes. She took a breath. Sometimes I miss our conversations. Tom's eyes darkened with emotion. I miss them too. I miss you. 3 words, quietly spoken, that cracked the careful wall she'd built between them. Tom, I'm not pushing, he interrupted gently. I'm just being honest. I've respected your decision. I haven't called or texted except about professional matters, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't think about you every day. Lisa's hands trembled slightly around her coffee cup. I think about you too. The admission hung in the air between them, fragile and meaningful. Tom reached across the table slowly, giving her time to pull away, and covered her hand with his. The warm weight of his palm against her skin sent electricity racing up her arm. Whatever's holding you back, he said softly, whatever promise or fear or doubt, it doesn't change how I feel. How I'll always feel. Tears threatened at the corners of her eyes. You don't understand. Then help me understand. His voice was gentle, pleading. Talk to me, Lisa. The moment stretched between them, taut with possibility. Lisa opened her mouth, the truth hovering on her tongue, about her mother, about the promise, about the graduation date that seemed simultaneously too far and too close. Tom, what a surprise! The moment shattered. A tall, elegant blonde approached their table, her smile wide and practiced. Tom withdrew his hand from Lisa's, his expression shifting to polite professionalism so quickly it was almost jarring. "Vanessa," he stood to greet, the newcomer with a brief kiss on the cheek. "I didn't know you were in town, just flew in this morning for the Richardson merger." Her eyes flicked to Lisa with blatant curiosity. "Aren't you going to introduce me?" Tom seemed momentarily discomfited, caught between worlds. "Of course. Vanessa Howard, this is Lisa Paris. Lisa is an education consultant for our adaptive learning initiative." The careful phrasing, truthful but incomplete, stung more than it should have. Vanessa extended a manicured hand, her grip firm and assessing. "Lovely to meet you. I'm on Tom's executive board." Her smile sharpened. "And an old friend." The emphasis on friend was subtle but unmistakable. Lisa felt a twist of jealousy that she had no right to feel. "Nice to meet you," she managed. "Vanessa, if you'll excuse us," Tom began, but the woman waved a dismissive hand. "No need. I can see you're working." She touched Tom's arm with familiar ease. "Don't forget about dinner tonight. The whole team is expecting you." With a final assessing look at Lisa, she strode away, leaving a cloud of expensive perfume in her wake. An awkward silence descended. Lisa gathered her things, suddenly desperate to escape. "I should go. I have a class." "Lisa, wait." Tom's voice held an edge of frustration. "That wasn't— Vanessa is a colleague, nothing more. You don't owe me explanations." She stood, slinging her bag over her shoulder. "I'm not your girlfriend, remember? I'm just a consultant." The words were childish, petty. She regretted them immediately, especially when she saw the hurt flash across Tom's face. "Is that really all you think you are to me?" he asked quietly. Lisa softened. "No, I'm sorry. That was unfair. Can we finish our conversation, please?" She glanced at her watch, genuinely noting the time now. "I really do have a class, but—" She hesitated, then made a decision she'd likely regret. "Maybe we could talk later, tonight." Hope kindled in his eyes. "My place? I could cook dinner." The intimacy of his penthouse, the two of them alone, it was dangerous territory. But Lisa nodded anyway. 7 o'clock. I'll text you the address." As she walked away, Lisa felt his eyes follow her. She didn't look back, afraid of what her face might reveal. The jealousy she'd felt seeing Vanessa touch Tom's arm had been unexpected and intense. She had no right to those feelings. She'd rejected him, pushed him away, maintained the distance between them. If he'd moved on, found someone else, she should be glad. The thought made her stomach twist. In her apartment later, preparing for dinner, Lisa paced nervously. Maya watched from the couch, concern etched on her features. "Are you sure this is a good idea?" she asked. "Dinner at his place. Just the two of you." "It's just to talk," Lisa insisted, though she'd spent an hour on her makeup and chosen a dress that skimmed her curves in a way that wasn't entirely conversational. "Clear the air." "And what exactly are you going to say? You're still not planning to tell him about the promise, right?" Lisa paused in her preparations. "I don't know, Maya. Maybe you're right. Maybe I should tell him the truth." Hope brightened Maya's expression. "Really? If I explain, if he understands why I've been pushing him away—" Lisa bit her lip. "Maybe we could find some middle ground. Not a relationship exactly, but not this painful distance either." Maya stood, hugging her tightly. "That sounds like progress. Actual, healthy progress." As Lisa finished getting ready, her phone chimed with a text from Tom. "Looking forward to seeing you tonight. And Lisa, whatever you decide to tell me, it won't change how I feel." She stared at the message, wondering how he could so often seem to read her mind, even across distance. Perhaps some connections transcended conventional understanding. Perhaps some loves were simply meant to be, regardless of timing or circumstance. For the first time in months, Lisa felt a glimmer of hope that perhaps there was a way forward that honored both her promise and her heart. She wouldn't break her vow to her mother, but maybe, just maybe, she could bend it enough to let some light in. As she left for Tom's penthouse, the weight she'd carried for so long felt lighter somehow. Whatever happened tonight, she was finally ready to take a step toward honesty. And perhaps that was a kind of progress they both desperately needed. Chapter 6. The Second Proposal. Love in the Sky. 6 months after the rooftop rejection, Tom and Lisa had found a delicate equilibrium. The dinner at his penthouse had been a turning point, not because Lisa had revealed her secret, but because they'd established new boundaries. She hadn't told him about her promise to her mother, but she'd admitted that her reasons for refusing him were temporary, not forever, just not now. It wasn't the full truth, but it was enough to give Tom hope, enough for them to rebuild a cautious friendship. They met for coffee twice a week, attended university events together occasionally, and exchanged texts daily, always careful to avoid crossing invisible lines that might trigger the pain of what they couldn't have. Spring had given way to early summer, the campus lush with greenery and warmth. Lisa had completed her 3rd year with honors, inching closer to her graduation goal. 1 year and 1 semester remained of her promise, a countdown she kept private but constant. On a balmy Friday evening, Tom called with an unusual request. "I need to inspect a property outside the city tomorrow. It's in wine country, beautiful views. Would you come with me?" "The drive is tedious alone," Lisa hesitated. They'd been careful to keep their meetings public, surrounded by others. A day trip alone together seemed risky. "Just as friends," Tom added, a hint of self-mockery in his voice. "I value your opinion on the investment potential." "Okay," she agreed finally. "What time?" "I'll pick you up at 9. Lisa spent a restless night wondering if she'd made a mistake. By morning, she'd nearly convinced herself to cancel, but when Tom's sleek car pulled up outside her apartment, she found herself walking toward it as if drawn by an invisible force. He looked casually elegant in jeans and a light blue button-down, and that emphasized the breadth of his shoulders. His smile, when she slid into the passenger seat, was warm, but carefully modulated, the smile of a friend, not a lover. "You look beautiful," he said, eyes appreciating the simple sundress she'd chosen. "Thank you for coming." The drive was pleasant, filled with easy conversation about books they'd read, campus politics, and developments in educational technology. They stopped for coffee at a roadside stand, then continued into wine country, where rolling hills were covered with vineyards ripening under the summer sun. "The property should be just ahead," Tom said, consulting his GPS, but when he turned onto a private drive, Lisa realized this was no ordinary real estate inspection. The lane wound through a flower-filled meadow to a charming stone villa perched on a hill, overlooking miles of vineyards and distant mountains. "Tom," she said uncertainly, "what is this place?" He parked, but didn't immediately answer, his expression suddenly tense. "It's mine, actually. I bought it last month." "You already own it? Then why did you say—" "Because I wanted to share it with you, without pressure or expectations." Lisa's heart raced as he led her inside. The villa was stunning, airy and light-filled with exposed beams and stone floors. French doors opened onto a terrace with breathtaking views. "It's beautiful," she said, honestly. "But why did you bring me here?" "Let's have lunch first," Tom suggested, avoiding her question. "I had it catered." On the terrace, a table was set with fine linens, crystal, and silver. A bottle of champagne chilled in an ice bucket. The scene was undeniably romantic, setting off warning bells in Lisa's mind. Throughout lunch, Tom was the perfect host, attentive but not overbearing, keeping the conversation light. They were finishing dessert when a distant sound caught Lisa's attention. "Do you hear that?" She looked up at the sky. A small plane was approaching, trailing something behind it. As it flew overhead, Lisa gasped. White smoke formed words against the blue sky. "Lisa, say yes this time." She turned to Tom, who watched her with vulnerable hope in his eyes. "Tom, what are you doing?" she whispered. He took her hand, leading her from the terrace into the meadow. As they walked, Lisa noticed something unusual about the sunflowers growing in abundance. Each one had a small card attached to its stem. 120 reasons why I love you, Tom explained softly. One for each week we've known each other. Lisa's hands trembled as she read the nearest card. The way you fight for what's right, even when it's difficult. Another, how you remember the names of every barrister at the Grove. And another, the look in your eyes when you talk about changing education for the better. Tears blurred her vision as Tom guided her to the center of the field. The sunflowers formed a natural circle around them. Golden faces turned to the sun. "I know you said not yet," Tom said, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "But I need you to know that my feelings haven't changed, that they won't change. Tom, please." "I love you, Lisa Paris." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a familiar velvet box. "I want to spend my life with you. Whether that starts today or years from now, my heart is yours." He opened the box, revealing the same beautiful ring from the rooftop proposal. Sunlight caught the diamonds and sapphires, sending prisms of light dancing across their skin. "Will you marry me? Not necessarily now, but someday?" Lisa's heart felt like it might shatter from the pressure of competing emotions. The ring, the sunflowers with their handwritten notes, the plane's skywriting. It was a dream most women would give anything to experience. And it came from a man she loved with every fiber of her being, but her promise remained. Unbroken, unbending. "I want to," she said, her voice breaking with tears. "But I can't." The hope in Tom's eyes dimmed, but didn't extinguish entirely. "Not even a conditional yes, not even for the future. I can't make that promise to you. It wouldn't be fair." What about this is fair, Lisa?" For the first time, frustration edged his tone. "You love me. I know you do. I can see it in your eyes right now. So why? Why do you keep pushing me away?" The directness of his question, the raw emotion behind it, nearly broke her resolve. "I made a promise I can't break," she admitted. "Please, understand." A promise to whom? Lisa's throat closed. She couldn't say more without revealing everything. "I can't tell you." Tom ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in the tense line of his shoulders. "Can't or won't? Both," she whispered. He took a deep breath, visibly struggling for calm. "Whatever this promise is, I hope it's worth our happiness." The quiet statement, delivered without anger but with profound sadness, struck Lisa like a physical blow. She took his hand, pressing a gentle kiss to his palm, the most intimate gesture she'd allowed herself in months. "I'm sorry, Tom." The drive back to the city was silent and heavy. Tom focused on the road, his profile carved from stone. Lisa turned toward the window, silent tears tracking down her cheeks. Outside her apartment, he spoke finally. "I won't ask. Again, Lisa, I won't put either of us through this a third time." Relief mingled with unexpected disappointment. "Thank you. But I'm not giving up on us," he continued, his gaze intense. "I'll be here, waiting, until you're ready to tell me what's holding you back. And if I'm never ready, then that's my burden to bear." He reached across the console, wiping a tear from her cheek with gentle fingers. "But I don't believe that. Something tells me your promise has an expiration date." Her sharp intake of breath told him he'd struck close to the truth. "Goodbye, Tom," she whispered, stepping out of the car before she could do something foolish like confess everything. That night, Lisa sat in her darkened bedroom, her phone open to the cemetery's memorial line. Her mother had been buried 3 years ago in a small plot under a flowering dogwood tree. The cemetery offered a service where visitors could leave voice messages at graves, a way to maintain connection with those they'd lost. Lisa had used it rarely. It felt strange, speaking to silence, but tonight she needed it desperately. "Mom," she said after the beep, her voice thick with tears, "I'm keeping my promise, but it's breaking my heart. I love him. I've never felt this way about anyone. Is this really what you wanted for me? For us to both suffer because of words spoken? When you were afraid for my future?" Only Static answered. He proposed again today. It was beautiful. He's beautiful. His heart, his mind, everything about him. Lisa wiped fresh tears. "I said no again. I'll keep saying no until graduation. I promised you, but Mom, it hurts. It hurts so much." She ended the call, dropping her phone onto the bed beside her. The heaviness in her chest felt unbearable, the future stretching before her like an endless desert. 14 more months until graduation, 14 months of loving Tom from a distance, of watching him perhaps find comfort with someone else. Someone, like Vanessa, who hadn't made impossible promises. The thought was a knife twisting in her heart. Outside her window, the waxing moon cast silver light across her bedroom floor. Lisa curled around her pillow, imagining it was Tom, his warmth, his strength, his unwavering love. "Just a little longer," she whispered to herself, "just a little longer." But in the deepest part of her heart, doubt had begun to take root. Would Tom really wait 14 more months without explanation? Would she be able to keep her distance, knowing how deeply they loved each other? And most troubling of all, would her mother truly have wanted this pain for her only daughter? Sleep came eventually, dragging her into dreams of sunflowers, turning their faces not to the sun, but to her, each golden bloom bearing her mother's knowing smile. Chapter 7. The third. Proposal, the rain she dreamed of. Autumn returned to campus, painting the trees in fiery hues as Lisa began her final year. The countdown to graduation had dropped below 300 days, a milestone that filled her with both anticipation and dread. She'd maintained her academic excellence, her thesis on educational equity already gathering attention from professors who hinted at doctoral program recommendations. But her personal life remained suspended in painful limbo. After the sunflower proposal, Tom had kept his word. No more romantic gestures, no more declarations of love. They'd retreated to careful friendship, seeing each other occasionally at university functions or bumping into each other at the Grove. Their conversations remained superficial, both afraid to venture into deeper waters. Lisa missed him with an ache that never subsided. She caught herself looking for him in crowds, scanning event attendee lists for his name, taking the long route to classes that passed his favorite campus spots. Tom had thrown himself into work, expanding his company's educational division with programs that subtly reflected Lisa's influence. Scholarships for underprivileged students, mentoring initiatives for young women in technology, accessibility innovations. When they did see each other, she noticed the shadows beneath his eyes, the new lines etched at their corners. He was polite, distant, his smile never quite reaching his eyes. November brought unseasonable warmth, followed by drenching rains. Lisa loved these days, when the world seemed washed clean and everything smelled of wet earth and possibility. During one particularly passionate discussion in her educational philosophy seminar, she'd once mentioned to a classmate, "Rain makes everything feel like a love story." She didn't know Tom had overheard. 3 days later, Lisa received a cryptic text, "Meet me at the Whittier Building tonight, 8 p.m. Art installation I think you'd appreciate. Last-minute addition to the Fall Arts Festival." The Whittier Building housed the university's visual arts program. Lisa hesitated, suspecting Tom's real intentions, but curiosity won out. At precisely 8 o'clock, she arrived at the building, surprised to find it mostly dark, except for lights leading toward the central exhibition hall. Following the illuminated path, Lisa pushed open the double doors and stopped in her tracks. Breath catching in her throat, Tom had created a world of rain that wasn't rain. The large space had been transformed into a magical dome filled with thousands of tiny crystal droplets suspended from nearly invisible threads, catching and refracting light. Soft music played from hidden speakers, her favorite classical piece, Debussy's Clair de Lune. The floor was covered with smooth river stones, and gentle mist swirled at ankle height, creating the illusion of walking through clouds. And in the center of it all stood Tom. He was completely soaked, as if he'd stood under real rain for hours. His white shirt clung to his shoulders, his hair dripping onto his face. He was barefoot on the stone floor, holding a white umbrella in one hand and a familiar velvet box in the other. Lisa couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The beauty of the scene, its creativity, its thoughtfulness, the way it captured something she'd once said in passing, overwhelmed her. "You said rain makes everything feel like a love story," Tom said softly, his voice carrying in the hushed space. "I wanted to give you that story." Tom. His name was all she could manage, her throat tight with emotion. He took a step toward her, water droplets falling from his clothes. "I know I promised not to ask again, but I've never been good at giving up on things that matter." Lisa remained frozen at the edge of the installation, afraid to step into the rain, afraid of what would happen if she did. "This is how I love you," Tom continued, his voice trembling slightly, wild, real, and pouring from the heart. Tears filled her eyes, blurring the magical scene. "You're drenched." A small smile touched his lips. "Worth it to see the look on your face right now." Unable to resist any longer, Lisa stepped into the false rain. Crystal droplets brushed her skin like cool kisses. She moved toward Tom as if in a dream, drawn by the gravitational pull that had always existed between them. "How did you do all this?" she asked, reaching the center where he stood. "Does it matter?" "No," she admitted, looking up at him through the falling crystals. "It's the most beautiful thing anyone has ever done for me." Tom's eyes softened with hope. "Lisa, I love you. I've tried to stop. I've tried to accept friendship. I've tried to give you space. None of it changes how I feel." "Tom, please, I know what you're going to say." He opened the velvet box, revealing the now familiar ring. "But I need to ask one more time. Not because I expect a different answer, but because I need you to understand that my feelings are constant, unchanging." He held out the ring, water dripping from his sleeve onto the stones at their feet. "Marry me, Lisa. If not today, then whenever you're ready. I'll wait, however long it takes." Lisa trembled, overwhelmed by emotion. The rain installation surrounding them, the man she loved standing before her with his heart laid bare. It was like something from her deepest dreams. And yet, her promise remained. Just a little longer, just a few more months. "I'm sorry, Tom," she whispered, tears mixing with the crystal raindrops on her face. "I love you, but I can't." Something in his expression shuttered, a door closing that she feared might never reopen. He nodded once, closing the ring box with a definitive snap. "I understand." But he didn't. He couldn't. Lisa raised a trembling hand to his cheek, the first time she'd touched him so intimately in months. His skin was cool and damp beneath her palm. She rose on her toes and pressed a gentle kiss to his forehead, an apology and a promise all at once. "Thank you for this," she whispered, "for understanding Rain." Then she turned and fled, unable to bear the pain in his eyes for one more second. Behind her, Tom stood motionless in his created downpour, watching her leave, water mingling with tears on his face. Outside, real rain had begun to fall, soaking Lisa as she ran blindly across campus. The universe's cruel echo of Tom's romantic gesture wasn't lost on her. By the time she reached her apartment, she was drenched and shivering, her makeup streaked down her face. Maya took one look at her and wrapped her in a blanket, guiding her to the couch without questions. Only when Lisa had changed into dry clothes and clutched a mug of hot tea did her roommate speak. What happened? Lisa told her everything. The rain installation, Tom's third proposal, her refusal. "This can't go on," Maya said when she'd finished. "You're both suffering needlessly. Your mother wouldn't want this, Lisa. You know she wouldn't." "Only 7 more months," Lisa whispered. "I've made it this far." "At what cost? Look at you. Look at him. This isn't healthy." Lisa stared into her tea, unable to argue. The misery was taking its toll on both of them. Tom's once vibrant eyes had grown shadowed, his smile forced. And she was a ghost of herself, going through the motions of achievement while her heart withered from the constant denial of its deepest desire. "I just need to finish what I started," she said finally. "Honor my word." Maya sighed but didn't press further. "Get some rest. You're catching a cold." Later that night, Lisa's prediction proved true. Her rain-soaked flight from the Whittier building left her with a fever that climbed steadily through the night. By morning, she was burning up, her thoughts disjointed and hazy. Maya called the campus clinic, but when Lisa's fever reached 103, she made a different call. "Tom, it's Maya. Lisa's really sick. I think she needs to go to the hospital, but I don't have a car." He arrived within 20 minutes, concern etched on his features. Without hesitation, he gathered Lisa's feverish form into his arms, murmuring reassurances as he carried her to his car. In her delirium, she curled against his chest, recognizing his scent, his strength. "Tom," she mumbled against his shoulder. "I'm sorry. The promise. Mom made me promise." His arms tightened around her. "Shh, it's okay. We're getting you help." At the hospital, tests confirmed severe influenza. Lisa drifted in and out of consciousness, aware sometimes of Maya's presence, sometimes of nurses checking her vitals. But most clearly, she registered Tom, his voice reading softly to her, his hand holding hers, his presence constant and unwavering. In her fever dreams, she spoke to him freely, the barriers of consciousness lowered by illness. "I love you," she told him during one such episode, her eyes glassy with fever. "I've always loved you." "I know," he replied softly, brushing damp hair from her forehead. "Rest now." "My mom made me promise," she continued, words slurring. "No love until graduation. I swore to her when she was dying, her last wish." She didn't see Tom's expression change as understanding dawned, didn't register the pieces falling into place in his mind. She simply drifted back into restless sleep, unaware she'd revealed the secret she'd guarded so carefully. 3 days later, Lisa's fever broke. She woke to find her hospital room filled with lilies and sunflowers, Tom's way of bringing her favorite things to the sterile space. But the man himself was gone. "He stayed until your fever broke," Maya explained, helping her sip water. "He's been here day and night, Lisa. Wouldn't leave your side even when the nurses tried to make him go home." "Where is he now?" "He went to take care of some work emergency. Said he'd be back tonight." Maya hesitated, an odd expression crossing her face. "Lisa, you said some things while you were delirious. About your mom. About a promise." Lisa's heart lurched. "What things? What did I say exactly?" "You kept repeating, 'I promised her no love until graduation, and Mom made me promise.' You were pretty explicit." Maya bit her lip. "Tom was here when you said it. I saw his face change, like someone had finally solved a puzzle that had been driving him crazy." Lisa closed her eyes, a mixture of dread and strange relief washing over her. He knows now. He didn't say anything about it, Maya said. Just sat there holding your hand with this intense look on his face. After your fever broke, he stepped out to make some calls, seemed very purposeful. Tom didn't return that evening. Instead, a package arrived, delivered by his driver, a beautiful leather-bound copy of Jane Austen's Persuasion with a note tucked. Inside, rest and recover. We'll talk when you're stronger. Lisa's fingers traced the embossed title, understanding its significance. Austen's story of love postponed by duty, of second chances years in the making. The book choice was no coincidence. It was confirmation that Tom had indeed heard and understood her feverish confession. Later that night, unable to sleep despite her weakness, Lisa called James. "How is he?" she asked without preamble. James sighed heavily. Focused. Intense. He's been locked in meetings with his PR team and some event planner since he left the hospital. Won't tell me exactly what he's planning, but... He paused. "Lisa, I've never seen him like this. He said something about, if she won't choose, I'll force the choice." "That doesn't sound like Tom," Lisa said, alarm growing. "He's always been patient. 3 years and 3 rejections will test any man's patience," James replied gently. "Whatever he's planning, I think it's his final play." The thought should have terrified her, but instead she felt a curious lightness, as if the burden of secrecy had been lifting from her shoulders without her permission. Upon her release from the hospital, there was still no sign of Tom. His texts were friendly but distant, asking about her recovery, but making no mention of visiting. Confusion and hurt mingled with her lingering weakness from the illness. "Maybe he's finally moving on," she told Maya as she settled back into their apartment. "Maybe the 3rd rejection was the final straw." Maya looked skeptical. "Or maybe he's planning something." "No more proposals," Lisa said firmly. "He promised." But as January turned to February and Lisa regained her strength, Tom remained conspicuously absent from her life. Their texts grew less frequent. He sent flowers on her birthday but didn't call. When mutual friends mentioned him, it was always in the context of his expanding business, never his personal life. Lisa told herself this was good. Better for both of them to have this clean break, this distance. She had only 4 months left of her promise. After graduation, if Tom was still free, still interested. But the thought of him with someone else, of permanently losing what they might have had, was a physical pain she couldn't shake. Spring midterms approached, bringing with them increased workload and stress. Lisa buried herself in preparations for finals and her thesis defense, using academic pressure to distract from the hollow ache in her chest. And then, on a rainy March evening, as she studied in the library, her phone buzzed with an unexpected text from Maya. "Tom's getting married. This weekend. I just heard from James." The world tilted beneath Lisa's feet, her vision tunneled, breath catching in her throat. "That's not possible," she typed back with trembling fingers. "There's been no announcement, no engagement." Maya's response was immediate. Small ceremony, very private, some girl named Elise. James said Tom only decided last week. Lisa sat frozen, unable to process the information. Tom was getting married. To someone else. In days. The thought was incomprehensible. After everything, the rooftop garden, the sunflower field, the rain installation, how could he have moved on so completely, so quickly? Unless he'd never really loved her at all. Unless all those grand gestures had been about the chase. Not the heart, no. She wouldn't believe that, couldn't believe that. The Tom she knew, the man who had sat by her hospital bed for days, who had looked at her with such unwavering devotion, he wouldn't simply replace her in a matter of weeks. Where? She texted Maya. "Where is the wedding?" The answer came back. Quickly, St. Catherine's Chapel, Saturday at 2 p.m. Lisa stared at the message, a storm of emotions swirling within her. Hurt, betrayal, confusion, and underneath it all, a fierce, primal possessiveness she'd never allowed herself. Tom was hers, had always been hers from the moment their eyes met in that lecture hall. Just as she had always been his, promise or no promise. She thought of her mother, of the vow made at her deathbed. 4 more months of that promise remained. 4 months versus a lifetime of regret. What would her mother want for her? Truly want? As rain hammered against the library windows, echoing the tears streaming down her face, Lisa made her decision. Some promises, she realized, were made to be broken, especially when keeping them would break something infinitely more precious. Her heart, Tom's heart, and the love they'd never fully been allowed to claim. Tom Wesley was getting married on Saturday, but not to Elise, whoever she was. If Lisa had anything to say about it, Tom wouldn't be marrying anyone but her. Chapter 8. The Test. A Fake Wedding. The universe shifted on a Thursday morning. Lisa sat in her advanced educational assessment class, her mind far from the professor's lecture on standardized testing biases. Every 30 seconds, she checked her phone, waiting for Maya to confirm the wedding details she'd been able to gather. 10 minutes before class ended, her phone vibrated with a text. Final confirmation from James. Saturday, 2 p.m., St. Catherine's, rehearsal dinner tomorrow night at Bellini's. Lisa's fingers tightened around her phone. 2 days. In 2 days, Tom would stand at an altar with another woman. The thought made her physically ill. The professor dismissed class early, and Lisa hurried across campus to her final exam of the day, Statistical Methods in Education Research. As she approached the building, a notification appeared on her phone. Her final paper for Cultural Perspectives in Education had been graded. She tapped the notification absently, expecting her usual A. Instead, the screen showed an A+ with a note from Professor Martinez. Exceptional work, Lisa. This represents the completion of all your major coursework requirements. With your thesis defense scheduled for May, you're now effectively finished with your degree program, except for formalities. Congratulations. Lisa stopped walking, staring at the message in shock. Effectively finished. The words echoed in her mind, their significance slowly dawning on her. Her promise had been to focus on education first, to avoid relationships until she graduated. But if she'd effectively completed all requirements, a wild hope bloomed in her chest. She needed to confirm. Immediately, instead of entering the exam hall, Lisa pivoted and ran toward the education department offices. Professor Martinez was at her desk grading papers. Lisa, she looked up in surprise, shouldn't you be in your statistics exam? Professor, Lisa said breathlessly, your note about my coursework. Does that mean what I think it means? That I've fulfilled all primary degree requirements? The professor smiled. Technically, yes. Your GPA is secure. All required courses are completed with excellent marks, and your thesis is on track. The remaining time until graduation is essentially a formality. So if something were to happen, if I needed to take personal time, it wouldn't affect my degree. Professor Martinez gave her a curious look. Are you planning to leave campus before graduation? No, Lisa hesitated. I need to know if my academic obligations are truly fulfilled. They are, the professor confirmed. You've been one of our most dedicated students, Lisa. Whatever's happening, you've more than earned some flexibility. Lisa felt tears prick her eyes. Thank you. That means more than you know. She left the office in a daze, her mind racing with implications. Her promise to her mother had been about prioritizing education, about not letting romance derail her academic goals. But those goals had been met. The promise, in its true spirit, had been fulfilled. Her mother wouldn't want her to interpret a deathbed request with such rigid literalism that it destroyed her chance at happiness. That had never been the point. With sudden clarity, Lisa knew what she needed to do. She pulled out her phone and called the statistics professor, explaining a family emergency and requesting to take the exam the following week. Then she ran to her apartment, bursting through the door to find Maya on the couch with her laptop. "Lisa!" Maya looked up in alarm. "What's wrong? Why aren't you at your exam?" "I'm done," Lisa announced, dropping her backpack. "Professor Martinez confirmed it. I've completed all my degree requirements. The promise, I've kept it, Maya, in spirit, if not in technical timing." Understanding dawned on Maya's face. "So you're going to tell Tom? Stop the wedding?" "Yes." Lisa paced the small living room. "But first, I need to visit my mother." An hour later, Lisa knelt beside her mother's grave, the familiar dogwood tree providing dappled shade. She traced the engraved name, Elaine Marie Paris, with gentle fingers. "Mom," she began softly, "I've kept my promise. I've put education first. Every assignment, every exam, every opportunity to learn, I've given it my all. And now, Professor Martinez says I've completed everything that matters." A gentle breeze rustled the dogwood blossoms, sending white petals drifting onto the headstone. "I know graduation isn't for a few more months, but the spirit of your wish was that I secure my future, that I not sacrifice my potential for a relationship. And I've done that." Lisa's voice cracked with emotion. "But Mom, I found someone who never asked me to make that sacrifice, someone who supports my dreams, who values my mind as much as my heart." She wiped away tears. "Tom loves me, really loves me, and I love him with everything I am. I don't think you'd want me to lose that over a technicality of timing. I don't think you'd want either of us to suffer when we could be happy together." The silence of the cemetery wrapped around her, peaceful rather than oppressive. "He's marrying someone else on Saturday." Lisa's hands clenched in her lap. "Unless I stop it. Unless I finally tell him the truth and claim what we both want." A sunbeam broke through the branches, warming her face. In that moment, Lisa felt a profound sense of permission, as if her mother was telling her to follow her heart at last. "I'm going to fight for him," she declared. "I think you'd be proud of that, of me loving bravely, completely." She pressed a kiss to her fingertips, then to the cool stone. "I love you, Mom. I always will. And I kept my promise, just with a slightly different timeline than we planned." As Lisa walked back to her car, her phone rang. Maya's name flashed. On the screen. "Lisa, where are you? You need to get back here now." "I'm at the cemetery. What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. The opposite." Maya's voice vibrated with excitement. "James just called. The whole wedding thing, it's a setup. It's not real." Lisa nearly dropped the phone. "What? Tom isn't really getting married. James said it's some kind of test to see if you'll fight for him." "A fake wedding?" Lisa felt dizzy with disbelief. That's insane." "Maybe," Maya conceded, "but also kind of romantic, in a twisted way. He's trying to force your hand, make you confront whatever's been holding you back." Lisa leaned against her car, mind racing. "He must have figured it out. When I was sick with fever, I remember talking about my promise. He must have heard." "So what are you going to do?" A slow smile spread across Lisa's face. "Play along, I guess. Give him the confrontation he's looking for." Back at the apartment, Lisa and Maya strategized late into the night. If Tom wanted a dramatic declaration, she would give him one he'd never forget. By morning, they had a plan that made Maya clap with delight. "He won't know what hit him," she grinned. Friday crawled by in a haze of anticipation. Lisa checked her appearance obsessively, selected and discarded multiple outfits for the following day, practiced what she would say when she confronted Tom. That Night, unable to sleep, she stood at her window watching the city lights. Somewhere out there, Tom was probably wondering if his plan would work, if she would appear tomorrow to stop a wedding that wasn't real. The thought made her both furious and amused. The man had created an entire fake marriage to provoke her into action. It was manipulative, excessive, borderline crazy, and perfectly unmistakably Tom. He had never done anything by half measures, especially when it came to loving her. Saturday dawned bright and clear. Lisa woke early, a strange calm settling over her. Today was the day she would finally claim the love she'd denied herself for so long. Maya helped her prepare, styling her hair into loose waves that framed her face. Lisa chose a crimson dress that hugged her curves. Not white, not bridal, but bold and confident. Her mother's pendant rested at her throat, a reminder of promises kept and new ones about to be made. "You look like a woman on a mission," Maya observed, applying the final touches to Lisa's makeup. "I am," Lisa replied, a fierce determination in her eyes. At 1:45 p.m., Maya drove her to St. Catherine's Chapel, a picturesque stone building nestled among ancient oaks. Cars lined the circular drive, an impressive turnout for a fake wedding. "Ready?" Maya asked, stopping near the entrance. Lisa took a deep breath. "Ready." Inside, she slipped into the back of the chapel, assessing the scene. Flowers adorned every pew, lilies and sunflowers, their significance not lost on her. At the altar stood Tom, breathtakingly handsome in a black tuxedo, his expression tense as he checked his watch. Beside him was James, playing the role of best man with barely concealed amusement. And next to the altar, in a white wedding dress, stood a striking blonde woman Lisa had never seen before, presumably the actress hired to play Tom's bride. The organ began the traditional wedding march, signaling the ceremony was about to begin. The minister stepped forward, beginning his welcoming words to the small but elegant gathering. Lisa's heart pounded in her chest as she recognized several of Tom's business associates and even a few university faculty members in attendance. He'd gone all out for this charade. This was her moment, her chance to finally break free of her self-imposed prison and claim the love she'd denied for so long. As the minister asked if anyone objected to this union, Lisa took a deep breath and stepped into the center aisle. "I do," she said, her voice stronger and clearer than she expected. Every head in the chapel turned. Gasps and whispers rippled through the guests. Tom's face, his beautiful, beloved face, registered genuine shock, as if he hadn't actually expected her to appear despite orchestrating this entire scenario. The fake bride looked appropriately startled, though Lisa caught the hint of a knowing smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Lisa began walking down the aisle, her crimson dress a vibrant slash of color against the traditional white and black of the wedding party. Her heels clicked rhythmically against the stone floor, each step bringing her closer to the future she was finally ready to claim. "Lisa," Tom breathed, his eyes never leaving hers as she approached. She didn't respond, didn't slow her determined stride. When she reached the altar, she paused for a dramatic moment, looking from Tom to his fake bride. Then, with all the passion she'd suppressed for years, Lisa slapped the blonde woman hard across the face. The sound echoed through the shocked chapel. The woman's head snapped to the side, her cheek instantly reddening. For a terrifying moment, Lisa feared she'd gone too far. This was assault, after all, even in the heat of passion. But then something remarkable happened. The blonde woman straightened, touched her cheek gingerly, and gave Lisa a subtle nod of approval. Leaning in slightly, she whispered just loud enough for Lisa to hear, "He said you'd be fiery, worth every penny and the slap. Go get him." Lisa felt a flash of gratitude toward this stranger who understood the theater of love unfolding around them. The woman wasn't angry. She was a willing participant in Tom's elaborate plan, playing her role perfectly. Later, Lisa would thank her properly, But now there was only one person who mattered in this chapel. Chapter 9. The moment, time seemed to stop in St. Catherine's Chapel. The echo of Lisa's slap hung in the air as guests sat frozen in shock. The blonde woman, Tom's fake bride, touched her reddening cheek, the ghost of a smile still playing on her lips as if to say, "Well played." But Lisa had eyes only for Tom. Now, in one fluid motion, she grabbed his face between her hands, her touch both fierce and tender. Their eyes locked for a heartbeat, his wide with surprise, hers blazing with determination, before she pulled him down to her level and kissed him full on the mouth. The kiss was everything. 3 years of denial, of longing, of love, kept carefully contained, now exploding between them like a supernova. Lisa poured herself into it, claiming Tom as hers as she'd never allowed herself to do before. His initial shock melted almost instantly, his arms wrapping around her waist, lifting her slightly off the ground as he returned her kiss with equal passion. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Lisa's hands remained on either side of his face. Her voice rang through the silent chapel, clear and resolute. "You are only mine." Tom stared at her as if she were a dream materialized. "Lisa? I'm done waiting," she declared, tears glistening in her eyes but her voice steady. "I love you. I always have. I just couldn't break a promise to my dying mother." Understanding dawned fully in Tom's expression. "That's why you kept saying no? A promise to your mother?" She nodded, tears flowing freely now. "But I'm free now. I've completed all my degree requirements, and I'm not letting you go. Not to her," she gestured to the blonde woman. "Not to anyone. You're mine, Tom Wesley, you always have been." The tension visibly drained from Tom's shoulders, joy lighting his features. Behind them, the fake bride quietly stepped away from the altar, winking at Lisa before slipping into a front pew. The assembled guests remained in stunned silence until James, unable to contain himself any longer, started clapping. The sound broke the spell, and suddenly the chapel filled with applause and laughter as the truth of the situation dawned on everyone. Tom's arms tightened around Lisa's waist. "You actually came," he whispered, his voice rough with emotion. "I wasn't sure you would." "How could I not?" Lisa touched his cheek gently. "The thought of you marrying someone else, I couldn't bear it." "There was never going to be anyone else," Tom assured her. "Not for me." The minister cleared his throat awkwardly. "So, am I to understand this wedding is off?" Lisa and Tom exchanged glances, both laughing softly at the absurdity of the situation. "Yes," Tom confirmed. "My apologies for the unconventional proceedings." As the guests began to disperse, murmuring among themselves about the dramatic turn of events, Tom led Lisa to a small antechamber off the main chapel. Once they were alone, he took both her hands in his expression growing serious. "You said something about a promise to your mother," he began. "When you were sick with fever, you mentioned it, but I couldn't be sure I understood correctly." Lisa nodded, finally ready to share the full truth. "When my mother was dying, she made me promise not to get involved with anyone until after I graduated. No love, no relationships, nothing that might distract me from my education." "Why didn't you just tell me?" Tom asked gently. "All this time, all these refusals without explanation?" "Because I knew you'd wait," Lisa admitted, squeezing his hands. "And I couldn't bear the thought of you putting your life on hold for years because of my promise. It seemed selfish to ask that of you." "I would have waited," Tom confirmed, bringing her hands to his lips. "A lifetime if necessary. These years of confusion and pain—" "I'm sorry," Lisa whispered, the weight of their unnecessary separation heavy on her heart. "I thought I was protecting both of us. I was so focused on honoring the letter of my promise that I lost sight of its spirit. My mother wanted me to prioritize my education, to secure my future. She never intended for me to deny myself happiness. And now, Tom asked, hope brightening his eyes, you said you've completed your requirements? Professor Martinez confirmed it, Lisa smiled. My coursework is finished, my GPA secured. I only have my thesis defense and graduation ceremony left, but they're formalities at this point. The promise, I've kept it in every way that matters. A slow smile spread across Tom's face, transforming his features with joy. From his pocket, he withdrew the familiar velvet box that had appeared in each of his proposals. Then may I ask, one final time? He opened the box, revealing the diamond and sapphire ring that had waited so patiently just as he had. Lisa Paris, will you marry me? Not someday, not eventually, but now, today, tomorrow, as soon as possible. Lisa laughed through her tears, her heart so full it felt as if it might burst. Yes, yes, Tom Wesley. I will marry you today, tomorrow, whenever you want. His hands trembled slightly as he slid the ring onto her finger at last. It fit perfectly, as if it had always belonged there. I love you, he whispered, pressing his forehead to hers. I have since the moment you challenged me in that lecture hall. I love you too, she replied, the words finally free to be spoken, without reservation. Completely, absolutely, with everything I am. Their lips met again. This kiss gentler than the first, but no less passionate. A promise of all that was to come, now that they were finally free to love each other openly. The sound of a discreet knock interrupted them. James poked his head into the antechamber, grinning widely at the sight of them embracing. Sorry to interrupt the reconciliation, but there's a room full of guests out there who came for a celebration. Seems a shame to waste the champagne and cake just because we're celebrating an engagement instead of a wedding. Tom looked to Lisa, a question in his eyes. She nodded, laughing. Why not? It's certainly a day worth celebrating. Hand in hand, they returned to the chapel's adjoining reception hall, where the guests had gathered in varying states of confusion and amusement. A cheer went up as they entered, Tom's arm wrapped securely around Lisa's waist, her new ring catching the light. James called for attention, raising his champagne glass. Ladies and gentlemen, there's been a slight change of plans. We're no longer celebrating a marriage, at least not today. He winked at the couple. Instead, I invite you to join me in toasting the engagement of Tom Wesley and Lisa Paris, who have finally gotten their timing right after 3 years of spectacular miscommunication. Laughter and applause filled the room as glasses were raised. Tom pressed a kiss to Lisa's temple, whispering, "No more waiting, no more waiting," she agreed, turning to capture his lips once more, heedless of the smiling audience around them. Later, as they danced together under the reception hall's twinkling lights, Lisa finally met Tom's bride, an actress named Rachel, who'd been hired for the elaborate ruse. "Sorry about the slap," Lisa apologized, wincing slightly. Rachel laughed, touching her still pink cheek. "Worth it for that dramatic entrance. Besides, Tom paid me very generously to be convincingly jilted." As the evening wound down, Tom and Lisa slipped away from the impromptu engagement celebration. In his car, he turned to her with a question. "Would you like me to take you home? To Maya's, I mean." Lisa reached for his hand, lacing their fingers together. "No. Take me to your place. I've waited long enough to be with you properly." The heated look Tom gave her sent shivers down her spine. Without another word, he drove them to his penthouse, the city lights blurring outside the windows as anticipation built between them. In the elevator ascending to the top floor, Tom pulled her in two, his arms, his kiss hungry and unrestrained. Lisa responded with equal fervor, her hands slipping beneath his tuxedo jacket to feel the warmth of him through his shirt. 3 years, he murmured against her neck. 3 years I've dreamed of having you here. "I'm here now," she whispered. "Back. And I'm not going anywhere. When the elevator doors opened directly into his penthouse, Tom surprised her by sweeping her into his arms. Lisa laughed, wrapping her arms around his neck as he carried her across the threshold. "Practice for the real thing," he explained with a smile that made her heart skip. As he set her down in the center of his living room, Lisa took in the stunning space. Floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city, elegant modern, furniture and bookshelves filled with volumes she longed to explore. But nothing in the penthouse was as captivating as the man standing before her, his eyes dark with desire and love. "Welcome home, Lisa," Tom said softly, reaching for her hand. "After all this time, you're finally here." The simple statement, filled with such emotion, brought fresh tears to her eyes. "Home," she repeated, the word feeling right on her tongue. "I like the sound of that." As Tom drew her into his arms once more, Lisa felt the last piece of her heart slide into place. The promise that had kept them apart for so long had been fulfilled. Now it was time for new promises, ones they would make together, ones that would bind them rather than separate them. And as night fell over the city, their silhouettes merged against the backdrop of twinkling lights, two souls finally claiming what had always been theirs. The next 7 days passed in a whirlwind of activity and emotion. The morning after their reunion, Tom and Lisa lay tangled in his sheets, discussing their future with the eagerness of children planning a holiday. "I don't want to wait," Tom said, tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. "Not anymore." "Neither do I," Lisa agreed, her head resting on his chest. "But a wedding takes time to plan." Tom propped himself up on one elbow, his eyes serious. "What if it didn't have to? What if I told you I had a country villa that would be perfect for a small ceremony? What if I said I know exactly who to call to make it happen by this weekend?" Lisa laughed, but stopped when she saw he wasn't joking. "You're serious?" "Completely." His fingers threaded through hers. "I've spent 3 years waiting for you, Lisa Paris. I'm done waiting." And so the preparations began, at a pace that would have seemed reckless if not for the certainty they both felt. Maya and James became their lieutenants, coordinating details and keeping them on track. Tom's assistant, accustomed to executing the impossible on short notice, became the unofficial wedding planner. Lisa found her dress on the second day, a simple, elegant design that seemed made for her. When the boutique owner mentioned a 6-month waiting period for alterations, Tom quietly mentioned his company's recent donation to the woman's favorite charity. The dress was promised in 3 days. They spent evenings making decisions about flowers, lilies and sunflowers, of course, food, a blend of their favorite cuisines, and music, the string quartet that had played during Tom's rain installation. Proposal. Each choice felt right, as if they'd been unconsciously planning this moment throughout their years apart. On the third night, as they reviewed the rapidly growing guest list, Lisa grew quiet. "What is it?" Tom asked, attuned to her slightest shift in mood. "My mother," she said softly. "I wish she could be there. I wish she could meet you, see how happy you make me." Tom wrapped his arms around her. "She'll be there, not physically, but in everything that matters." He kissed her temple gently. "Would you like to incorporate something of hers into the ceremony?" The suggestion led to a call to Aunt Vivian, who immediately promised to fly in with Elaine's pearls and favorite photograph. That evening, Tom held Lisa as she cried, not from sadness, but from the release of long-held tension, the final reconciliation of her mother's wishes with her own happiness. The night before their wedding, as tradition dictated they spend apart, Tom held her close one last time before Maya arrived to whisk her away. "Tomorrow," he whispered against her lips, "you'll be my wife." "Tomorrow," Lisa echoed. "We stop saying goodbye." As she fell asleep in her old bed at Maya's apartment, Lisa felt a profound sense of rightness settle over her. The frantic pace of wedding planning had left no time for doubt, for second-guessing. And perhaps that was exactly what they needed. Decisiveness after years of hesitation, certainty after so much confusion. Tomorrow couldn't come quickly enough. Chapter 10. The real wedding sunlight bathed the gardens of Tom's countryside villa in golden light. The same villa where he had once proposed amid sunflowers now transformed for their wedding, fairy lights among olive trees, an altar of lilies and sunflowers intertwined. In a bedroom overlooking the gardens, Lisa stood before a mirror, radiant in a simple ivory silk gown that flowed like water. In her dark hair, she wore her graduation tassel, the physical symbol of her fulfilled promise to her mother, the bridge between past obligation and future joy. "You look like a goddess," Maya declared, adjusting Lisa's veil. "I feel like I'm dreaming," Lisa admitted. "A week ago I was storming into a fake wedding. And now you're getting married for real," Maya grinned, "to a man who created an entire fake wedding just to win you back." Aunt Vivian entered with her mother's pearls. "Your mother would be so proud," she said, fastening them around Lisa's neck. "So accomplished and so loved." "I just wish she could be here," Lisa whispered. "She is," Vivian assured her, touching Lisa's heart. "And she would tell you to grab this happiness with both hands." At the altar, Tom stood tall against the backdrop of rolling vineyards. When Lisa appeared on Vivian's arm, the look on his face, pure wonder, love, disbelief, burned into her memory forever. His eyes never left hers as she approached, each step bringing her closer to the future they'd fought to claim. Beside Lisa's mother's empty chair sat a framed photograph adorned with lily blossoms. "You're breathtaking," Tom whispered as she reached him. The officiant spoke of their extraordinary journey, a love that had overcome obstacles, persevered through misunderstanding, never wavered, even when the path seemed impossible. When the time came for personal vows, Tom took both her hands in his. "Lisa Paris, I've loved you from the moment you challenged me in that lecture hall. I proposed to you 3 times, in 3 different ways. Each time, you said no for reasons I couldn't understand, but you never said you didn't love me." His thumb brushed over her knuckles. "I promised to love you with that same patience and persistence for all our days, to support your dreams as fiercely as my own." Lisa looked at her mother's photograph, drawing strength from her smile. "I kept my promise to you, Mom," she said directly to the image, "and now I make a new one to Tom, to love him completely, with nothing held back, for all our days." Turning back to Tom, she continued, "I promise to never again let fear or obligation stand between us, to speak truth even when it's difficult, to remember the patience and love you showed me, even when I was pushing you away." When they were pronounced husband and wife, Tom gathered her into his arms with a kiss that conveyed everything words couldn't express. As darkness fell, they danced to Clair de Lune, the same Debussy piece from Tom's rain installation proposal. "No, more almost moments," he whispered into her hair. "From now on, every moment is completely ours." Later, Tom led Lisa to their wedding suite. The room glowed with dozens of candles, rose petals scattered across the floor, leading to an enormous bed. But what touched Lisa most were the thoughtful details referencing their journey. A painting of the rooftop garden, a potted sunflower with a handwritten note continuing his count of reasons, and the gentle sound of rainfall from a hidden speaker. Each element represented a chapter of their story, creating a sanctuary that honored all they'd overcome. Tom swept Lisa into his arms, carrying her over the threshold. Her body fitted against his, as if designed as his perfect counterpart. He set her down gently beside the bed, his eyes dark with desire as he gazed at her in candlelight. With reverent hands, he turned her mother's photograph to face the wall. "For privacy," he explained with a tender smile. "I love you, Tom Westley," Lisa whispered, tracing his beloved face. "More than I have words to express." "Show me," he replied, voice husky with need. As he closed the door, securing them in their private sanctuary, Tom leaned down to whisper in her ear, "Now close the door for passionate romance." What followed transcended physical desire. It was the consummation of souls finally united. After years of separation, each caress erased another moment of pain, replacing it with exquisite pleasure. His hands and lips explored her body with reverent worship, her responses guiding him to places that made her gasp and arch against him. When they finally joined, the sensation of completeness overwhelmed them both, tears mingling with passionate kisses as they moved together in perfect harmony, breaking and rebuilding each other with every shared breath. "You were always only mine," she whispered against his lips as dawn painted the sky with gold. "And I've always been only yours," he answered, completing the circle that had begun the moment their eyes first met across that crowded lecture hall years ago. Outside, their window, sunlight sparkled on vineyard rows, a new day dawning on a love strong enough to have waited for its perfect moment.